Okay, Donald, your host, co-host.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. I don't see the sharing button. Oh, there it is. I got it. Okay, gotcha. Okay, share. Good. Okay, you see it?
Are we good to go, Verna?
Yes, we're good to go.
All right, Janie.
Okay, welcome. Oh, I'm Jenny Swatzel, and I'm here to welcome you to the NAMI San Antonio September General Meeting. Next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Glenn. I want to thank you for attending this morning. I think we have a very interesting group of presenters today. I'd like to briefly introduce them.
Bill, we're going to do some housekeeping first, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, to the end of that housekeeping, would you please put your first name and your zip code in the chat so we can keep a track of demographics and who's here today? Thank you. Next. And we'd like to have a moment of silence in recognition of those lost recently. Thank you. And our agenda today is Bill's going to do another welcome, and then we're going to have our current awareness intro. He's going to introduce the presenters. We'll have the presenters, question, answers, and then a closing. Next. And for those of you who just joined us for demographics, we have some housekeeping. Please put your first name and your zip code in the chat so we can keep a track of where we're reaching people. Next. And I'd like to introduce a member of the NAMI San Antonio Board of Directors, Bill Glenn.
Good morning, everyone. I believe we have a wonderful program for you today and some very interesting speakers. We're glad you're here. And I'd like to begin by introducing Kim Sayre. Kim is the Clinical Project Director for Communities and Schools of San Antonio, and she's worked there for several years. She's a licensed professional counselor and supervises licensed professional counselors through the State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors. All of her work has been with at-risk youth and their families, and has included assisting teachers and administrators in how to appropriately respond to their students' unique and challenging behavioral and emotional needs. She is well-versed in trauma-informed practices and is a trust-based relationship intervention practitioner through the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development at Texas Christian University. She also specializes in training mindfulness and dialectic behavioral therapy techniques. Kim's experience in the school setting helps her to understand the mental health and wellness needs of our students and school staff, and she has seen how COVID-19 has created significant challenges in schools and how it has impacted the mental health needs of our youth. With that, I'd like to introduce Kim, and we'll introduce the other speakers as we go along.
Thanks, William. So my name is Kimberly Sayers. I worked for Communities and Schools, and if you don't know our agency, we provide individualized case management services to students in schools across the San Antonio area. We are in about 150 schools this year across 12 school districts in our area. I oversee our specialized mental health professionals. So we add an extra layer of actual counseling for students that we work with in the school setting. So We serve students in pre-K all the way up through high school. So today I'm just going to focus on the mental health needs of all students, but mostly those younger kiddos and what we're seeing prior to COVID. This is just some data from the CDC on what we're seeing by age for behavior disorders, anxiety, and depression in our students. And you can go to the next slide too. These are some basics of what we already knew about mental health in the school settings and outside the school settings, just in general with youth. So there's types of stress, right, from prior to COVID. We all had normal stress. We had healthy stress. Those are the ones that sometimes help us perform better. If you think of athletic activities and feeling that stress can help us focus and perform better. And then we have the toxic stress situations that come from an unhealthy home life and unhealthy environment. And then we have tolerable stress. So those ones where maybe we're dealing with the death of a loved one. So 3 different types of stress that we felt prior to COVID. Now we're adding an extra layer of added stress across the board in all of our populations that probably fall under that toxic stress, sometimes tolerable stress for our kiddos, but a lot of what they may have experienced at home or dealing with the significant loss of several family members due to COVID, just the loss of social engagement, the loss of their schedule, what they're used to in life can lead to a whole bunch of issues on top of the normal stress that we already feel. You can go to the next one. So this is kind of talking about youth development and why thinking about the stress and mental health needs of our students now more than ever is really important. Children prior to COVID were already experiencing children who have already experienced 2+ episodes of toxic adversity. So that was that maybe domestic violence situation or a neglectful situation or any kind of abusive situation are already 2.6 times more likely to fail a grade, 2 times more likely to be suspended, 5 times more likely to have attendance problems, and so on. You can see all of those there. So this all comes from the ACEs research that we have. And so you have all of these problems compounded to even more episodes that a student has. So it's saying there, a student who may have 4+ ACEs out of a 10-point scale is 32 times more likely to have learning and behavior issues in school. So ACEs is something that we already looked at prior to COVID. Now COVID, we can probably say, is an additional ACE for a lot of kiddos. So students that already had multiple ACEs now have even more ACEs with COVID. We're going to see a lot more of these issues in the school setting, but also mental health issues in general for the entire population. Okay, next one. So we're going to talk a little bit about the mental health crisis pre-COVID, and then what COVID has done, and then what we can look to kind of help the situation, help our youth feel supported and get support through mental health crisis. Next one. These are just some numbers for us to see how COVID has impacted mental health in our students. So for all students, you can ignore the little numbers up there, but the majority of our students have seen their mental health be worsened due to the COVID-19 impact. So you have all students would be those pre-kinder up through high school. I think the majority of those that were surveyed were probably upper elementary school up to high school. So we're probably missing even some more from those lower age kiddos. And the college students and high school students is at the end there. So a majority of our students have had their mental health greatly impacted due to COVID-19. So we're already experiencing that before. Now it's even worse after COVID-19. So we have a pretty big uphill battle to work through here. Next one. Okay, so these are ways that COVID-19 impacted your life, and you can see the majority there. We have all of these that were already there: stress, anxiety, disappointment, or loss, but now we're adding some extra things that were unique to COVID, right? That's financial setback that our families experienced, relocation, having to move, maybe in changing schools, having to not be in school. So all of these things that were already experienced, plus the loss of a loved one, taking care of loved ones, illness yourself, having to self-quarantine. COVID-19 had a significant impact on life, and that also affects our mental health. Okay, next one. So this is what we've seen in the classroom since COVID-19. So this was taken from our counselors that are working directly in the schools over the last school year. So when a majority of our kiddos in the Bexar County area were doing school virtually, we had very few students that were actually returning in person. So we were dealing with kiddos that were still at home, still isolating at home with their families. Lots of anxiety. That was the biggest issue, that unknown of, am I going to get sick if I step outside my house? Or is my loved one, when I leave, they're sick, are they going to die? Because I'm hearing all these numbers. So that anxiety of the unknown was huge. And then grief and loss already, with the number of, we saw so many students that had multiple family members pass away. And so not only are they dealing with the grief of a direct parent or caregiver, but now they have multiple family members that they're working through. That's unusual during normal times in most situations. You got social interaction that they were missing out on, which could lead to a lack of structure issues and acting out at home, social isolation, which leads to depression, especially in our slightly older kiddos, sleep issues, or not having a sleep schedule anymore because they're not having to wake up as early for school, attachment issues, difficulty focusing. And then we also saw it in our parents and what they were dealing with. So their issues compounded and affected their kids and what they were seeing. So working through what our parents were experiencing also has an effect on the students. And then even the teachers, for those kiddos that did go to school or that engage in virtual learning, our teachers had to deal with a lot of anxiety and having to know, I have to do virtual and I have to do it in person, and I have to deal with all of the added responsibilities as a teacher. So we saw a huge impact on mental health in our youth and our caregivers of youth due to COVID-19. Okay, next one. So what do we do from here? Most of our kiddos are now back in person. The COVID-19 is still around and it's still having an effect on us. So what can we do to kind of help our kiddos work through the situation? So we'll talk a little bit about some strategies that we can work with them in the schools and with our parents too that can help their kiddos. Okay. So let's talk about ACEs and the idea of positive experiences. So ACEs is talking about adverse childhood experiences, but it's also really important to think about how positive experience can positively affect those ACEs and kind of help us cope through strategies of and provide resilience for us. So if we have families that are able to talk about feelings, or families that family members that helps them through difficult times, or we are able to still continue enjoying participating in community traditions and getting outside safely and maintaining boundaries that we need to, but still engaging with the community. A sense of belonging it says high school, but in school in general, right? That's why a lot of kiddos that are engaged in activities, clubs in school, feel a lot more of a connection, and that helps them create that sense of belonging and being generally supported by friends and family, but friends. We have more engagement and more relationships with more adults is really helpful. So if we're not getting that at home, building those positive relationships with non-parent adults in the school setting, in the for the younger kids in a daycare setting, in the club setting, whatever that looks like, ensuring that we're providing more adult positive relationships for kiddos can help build that resilience. And then feeling safe and protected by an adult in their home. That felt safety is really important. So this is the kind of a thought of adverse childhood experiences and then positive childhood experiences and how they can interact and help each other, or how positive experiences can affect positively those adverse experiences. Okay. So this is just some brief findings on positive childhood experiences. So for those reporting 6 to 7 positive experiences, the odds of having depression or 14 or more mental health days where we're experiencing a mental health episode was 72% lower than those reporting fewer positive childhood experiences. So the creating positive experiences for our children is going to help them with mental health. Mental wellness is a really good word to use there. For those reporting 3 to 5, the odds of depression or poor mental health were 50% lower. So still a good amount of time, a good increase in positive experiences can lower mental health. And then it says these associations held true even when the respondents reported multiple ACEs. They have all that experiences, those adverse experiences, and they're able to have positive experiences. The same statistics apply for them. So we can see the power of positive childhood experiences to overcome some negatives that we've had. Okay, next one. This is just talking about relationships. This is what we do as an agency, what our foundation is, building relationships and seeing the importance of, just like positive childhood experiences, doing that with a powerful relationship outside of the home is going to help a child feel connected and help work through mental health. So it says the single most common finding is that children who end up doing well have had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive parent, caregiver, adult. So that's that resiliency factor. Okay, so that leads into the next talk on what we can do as caregivers and parents, and that's providing a developmental relationship framework. So look at how can we provide support to our kiddos, expand their possibilities, challenge their growth, express care, and share power. All of this can have a positive impact on mental health. And this is from the Search Institute. So we use a lot of these strategies with our traditional programming outside of our counseling program, but we try to incorporate these as often as we can with our students to build those positive relationships. Okay, next one. Okay, so these are our healing strategies after already knowing the mental health crisis prior to COVID, knowing the impact that COVID-19 has had on mental health and increasing the mental health awareness and issues that our kiddos are facing. These are some simple strategies we use with the younger kiddos. We build mindfulness strategies, not only in our programs, but also helping parents do them as well and use them with their kiddos so that everybody's kind of understanding regulation and what our own needs are. We do guided meditation, some of these calming strategies. Most of these are regulation, but simple experiences that young kids understand. So bear breathing and balloon breathing, blowing up a balloon. We do kind of like blowing the soup. So that's another calming strategy where they smell the soup and blow. So get some really good belly breathing in. Grounding techniques using 5 senses. A lot of these go back into mindfulness and some meditation. Just simple time management and organization skills for these kids that have been out of school for so long. They don't know it. They didn't do that at home. So having to relearn what school is a really big deal. For some students, they've been out of school for almost 2 school years by this point, or it feels like 2 school years for a lot of teachers. So having to reinstill all of those basic skills, all of that helps with mental wellness as well. And then having goal setting activities and coaching through communication strategies. And then specific to anxiety, there's lots of specific counseling strategies that we use, but also talking about thoughts and who controls your thoughts and your behaviors and how it leads to certain things that our behaviors are leading us to think certain things. Solution focused, scaling questions, those are more specific counseling techniques that we use. But the biggest thing that we do a lot of with the littles is that mindfulness and understanding regulation and when they are dysregulated, what are some strategies that they can do to help ground themselves and then talk about what they're feeling. Okay, I think the next one, I think that might be it. Yes. So that's kind of what we do in the school setting while still engaging parents to kind of help everybody understand the mental health effects that COVID-19 has had. And everybody talking about it is going to help kind of get a sense for how we can provide support to impact mental health needs of our students, but also of our families. I think I had a question in the chat box on the locus of control, so that we control, there's an internal and external locus of control. So for some people, if we think that everything that happens to us is because the world hates us, that would be external locus of control, versus us understanding that we have an impact on what happens to us and we can make decisions. So that's kind of helping them see that, is it a choice that we make, or is it something that just happened to us? So a worry box is a tangible thing that we can do where it's kind of like a memory box, but you might have, the best example is like those cigar boxes that have a lid, and they can put clippings from the magazine of words, or they can put items that represent something that they are worried about, and they can like lock it away into a box. You can do a lot of that with tearing things up or throwing it away. It's that same concept of being able to lock it away. Think about it, process it, lock it away, and then get rid of it. I don't know if I missed any questions.
There's one from Mary Baird that whoops, I lost it. Can NAMI basics be taught to parents? And that would be a yes answer.
I see another one from Karen Ball.
Yes.
Numbers in San Antonio suggest that 1 in 4 adults struggle with mental wellness. Is it similar with children in
Schools.
schools?
So the Clarity Child Guidance Center here in San Antonio has a campaign called 1 in 5 Minds. And the idea is that 1 in 5 individuals from about around the age of 8 is when we really start seeing mental health issues or recognizing mental health issues. But 1 in 5 individuals struggle with a mental health need. And due to COVID, we are starting to see an increase in that of people exhibiting those. So I would say for sure, it's probably close to 1 in 4, definitely for adults, but we are seeing that for sure in students. And whether that's a significant, like a diagnosable mental health, or it's just a mental wellness issue that we're having to address, I think those numbers are very similar for kids as they are for adults.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there was one more. Joshua asked, you alluded to the impact that positive experiences can have to counteract the ACE scores. Are there specific practices you use to promote these, since the pandemic will often place students back in the environment that gave them the ACE score in the first place?
Yes. One of the last slides was talking about how even if our ACE score is really high, by providing as many positive childhood experiences as we can counteract that. So that's what our goal is in communities and schools, is not only the student that we case manage, providing that one-on-one relationship where we can provide those positive experiences, but also helping the schools recognize that, which many of them do a really good job at already, but really encouraging that relationship in the Search Institute, the developmental relationships, so that kids have more positive experiences at school with the caring teachers and adults in the classroom setting, so that if they are still returning to that negative environment at home, we're able to try to counteract that as much as we can.
I'd also like to comment on Mary Baird's question about NAMI Basics. NAMI Basics is a 6-week course, free, for parents of children and adolescents. It's very informative. We're working with communities and schools to let more and more parents know about that opportunity. And we also have a support group. NAMI Texas has a support group specifically for basic parents, for parents with children and adolescents, their own support group, because it's much different when you have an adult child than when it is. So we're really happy about this new support group. So just to answer her question, yes, NAMI Basics would be very helpful to our parents.
I see this last one on teachers. That is a big one that some schools are recognizing the need for their teachers to have support. There is a huge amount of added stress due to COVID and especially last year, all of the extra expectations that were placed on teachers. And there's not a lot of specific supports outlined yet for teachers. So that is something that we do need to highlight.
I also see a comment here at the NAMI conference.
Where it needed to go to.
Mentioned we needed to use mental illness versus mental health terminology, I assume.
They sent you a kite.
We like to use the term mental wellness because it encompasses not all. Mental health usually tends to make people think of an issue or a problem or a diagnosis. Mental wellness to us encompasses a full range of focusing on our own individual needs. Like we may not say that we may have sadness, but it's not to the level of depression. So mental wellness could address self-care issues or just feeling anxiety in certain situations. So we typically do more of an umbrella approach with mental wellness. All right, I think those are all the questions. I'll put my email address in the chat box if anybody's interested in reaching out, but I appreciate it, the time.
Kim, thank you very much. It was very
Thank you.
interesting. Next, we're going to hear from Donnie Whitehead, who is also in education. She's a retired high school principal from Estrada Achievement Center through the San Antonio Independent School District's Alternative Education Program. As a principal, she developed a passion to acquire more knowledge about children's mental health challenges. Mrs. Whitehead is a trainer of trainers for conflict resolution and restorative discipline. She has participated in trauma-informed campuses training, children's and adults' mental health first aid, and crisis prevention institute training. She is also a life purpose and mental health coach. Mrs. Whitehead served on the boards of the National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI San Antonio, a fellow board member, the Center for Healthcare Services, the San Antonio Women's Hall of Fame. Mrs. Whitehead is a NAMI Bridges to Care Wellness Champion, has recently completed psychological first aid, first responder champion, and has recently training. Currently, Mrs. Whitehead is implementing NAMI on the campus high school and mental health awareness and leadership development clubs in collaboration with San Antonio Independent School District. Mrs. Whitehead is currently completing a Doctor of Psychology. Donnie? There you are.
What a wonderful introduction. And so I'm so excited, and good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about NAMI Mental Health Awareness and Leadership Development Club. We heard the information from Kim this morning with CIS. We heard the things that are happening on the campus. And so NAMI wants to be innovative in this. And we have a solution for those things that she was talking about. And that is our Mental Health Awareness Club. Next slide, please. As we know, with NAMI, everyone who works with us are volunteers. So I'm excited to have some volunteers on my team. I appreciate Vernon Lister as well as Cliff McLaughlin. And Cliff wanted to have all those alphabets. I have no idea what they mean, but they're very important to him and his mental wellness. So we left them there. We also have a new team member as of yesterday, and I am so pleased to announce to you that is Reverend Baron Blue. Reverend Blue, thank you so much. I am just so pleased. She is very happy. But what I want to tell you, next slide, please, is that when a report was given on students, they said 4 things that they wanted. They wanted another adult who they can trust, someone who's nurturing and caring and provides for them a safe environment. They wanted other peers that they can talk to in case they were experiencing any type of difficulties or things that they didn't understand. They wanted the school to be more centered on their needs when it came to, and more involved when it came to mental health. And they did not wish to be in clinical settings. So with those things that they wanted, the NAMI on Campus High School is the program for those kids and for schools. So NAMI on Campus High School is a program that has been initiated in California, as well as North Dallas or North Texas. And we've looked at those particular programs and we decided, oh, we need to bring this to San Antonio, but we're gonna add something a little bit different. We're gonna add the leadership development, because I'm a leadership development instructor, and I think that all kids should be exposed to leadership development. So let's talk a little bit about NAMI on Campus High School. NAMI on Campus is student-led, student-centered. It's just for students. It's open to all students. On most campuses, in order to be a member of a club, you must have a certain grade point average. And so with this, you don't need a grade point average, only an interest. We want these students to become advocates and leaders. We want people to be able to identify them on campus and know who they are. We want students to be able to talk openly about their concerns dealing with mental health and wellness. We want them to be able to learn about mental health conditions, and we want them to be able to support their family and friends with these conditions. We want to increase the awareness. Sometimes kids, when they're young, we're talking 9th through 12th grade, the body is going through changes and they don't clearly understand what's happening. So we want to make sure that they are able to know about their bodies and know about their experiences and be able to talk about it. And the most important thing is the stigma that's attached. If you've been diagnosed ADHD or with any of those things, there's a stigma that can be attached and bullying can be associated with that. So we want to have students to help students to be improved students. Next slide, please. So what we're going to do is we're going to educate the faculty and the staff at these schools that we are working on, and the administration. We're going to be supportive to students who are living with the mental health, and this is the purpose of the clubs on campus. Also to provide NAMI information to schools and communities. Now with providing the NAMI information, what I found with my contacts is I have contacted about 6 different school districts who will be putting NAMI information on their campus for the parents as well as for the students. And these are the things that the NAMI on campus high school students will be able to upkeep and take care of us, those things for us. We want people to recognize the early warning signs, especially parents. And we want to end that stigma. That little mental health matters, little brain there is from Brainscape, which is a word puzzle game that the kids like to use, but he is lifting up those weights because he aims to stop the stigma. We also want to create an inclusive and safe and supportive school environment. And most importantly, we want to make sure that students and everyone on the campus understands that help is available through NAMI if they need it. Next slide. The leadership development objective. This is my heart. What we're going to do is, the expectation will be that the students will be able to provide the vision for their club. Remember, it's student-led, student-centered. So we don't tell them what we want them to do. We let them explore and express and have their own buy-in and become those leaders. So they will name their club. It's not going to be the NAMI high school. They will name their club and they will select their activities. There are lots of activities that they can do. The mental health week, suicide prevention week, breaking the stigma, all kinds of activities. They can have games, volleyball games, and all of that, but they will organize those. We will also make sure that they have effective communication skills and organizational structure, and that they are able to manage their time efficiently. What that is meant, the students will give a report twice a year to NAMI, so we can know how they're doing. We're expecting these students to be ambassadors. We expect them to represent NAMI, their campuses, SAISD, and so and Bear County. So we're going to be able, we would like to be able in the future to use these students to have them in the spotlight so that they can represent us. Of course, they would need to be role models, and then give them opportunities to volunteer in activities and to perform community service like working in a food bank and things of this nature. But most importantly, we want them to motivate and inspire others. These students will be on campus with lanyards that have suicide prevention hotline, hotline information on it, all kinds of information, and whatever they create to go on their badges so that they can be identified. We want them to be identified on the campus. Next slide, please. Now, this is exciting. The students will learn about mental conditions. We have Cliff and we have Blue who will do those things for us because there's a curriculum that we'll write. They will be able to collaborate with other clubs, and that's Jefferson High School and Lanier High School. Now, these two schools were selected because when I was principal of the alternative campus, where students committed infractions in the student code of conduct, the students came from Jefferson and Lanier. And those students were there because of drug-related offenses. And those drug-related offenses were because they were self-medicating. And once I talked to them about this as principal, they shared with me childhood traumas that they had had in the past. So that is the reason these particular schools were selected. So I've already talked about them being role models. They will learn how to conduct meetings. We expect them to have a president, a secretary, and an activities coordinator to coordinate their activities. So we're doing a little bit different here. They don't need a treasurer or any of those things because we're not expecting them to collect money. We want to reduce that stigma on campus. I've talked about that. And we want to make mental health conditions acceptable. It's okay if you have, I'm just using ADHD, but if you have these disabilities, if you're taking medication, it's okay because those are the things that can improve the quality of life. And then that valuable experience that they gain with working with peers, adults, and others, which is one of the things that students want to do. Next slide, please. When I talked to our executive director and board chair, what was important to me was that these students are inclusive with NAMI, that they become members of National NAMI, NAMI Texas, and NAMI San Antonio. Also, that they have opportunities to attend and actively participate in NAMI events and activities. They're going to get the word out for us about what we do with NAMI. And this is important, but a lot of people say no big deal. But if I'm a high school student, 9th grade, and I get a magazine in the mail with my name on it, that's exciting. But of course, students now like the online platform, but they will get the subscription to the advocacy magazine online or mailed to their homes. And I'm excited about that. It gives kids value. I am somebody. Somebody's thinking enough about me. I'm getting stuff delivered into my mailbox or to my computer from me. And then an opportunity to collect and earn community service hours, which they need for their college application. And it's gonna really look great to see that they were members of NAMI on that college application. Also, if needed, a reference letter for job application or colleges, because we, the committee, believe that we are going to form relationships with these students and not just leave the sponsors or the school, what I would say, hanging. We will be there to their meetings for support. Next slide. So there are also benefits for the teachers as well and the parents. As I stated, there are several districts, several people who are assisting us with getting the NAMI information out so that they will know about NAMI and they know about the resources of NAMI, both nationally and locally. The students and the staff will be able to have those live experience presenters with Ending the Silence, and also give students an opportunity to meet face to face with someone who's living well in recovery. So if they are struggling, they will know hope is alive and everything is okay for me. They have to have those role models. They must see that positive behavior that's emitted from someone who has been diagnosed. Of course, we want to discourage bullying. Bullying is a federal crime that most people don't punish kids when they bully. On my campus, we would, but there was no bullying because we had a level of respect and honor and dignity. But those youth and NAMI youth ambassadors will make a positive change on the campus once they are trained. And we want to take a proactive approach to prevention and intervention by providing the needs and services. I belong to a lot of organizations. I'm working on a lot of things. I want to know about children and youth mental health. So when he read, it surprised me, when he read my information, you can tell I'm learning every day. I am a lifelong learner. I am excited about this and an opportunity to get back in the classroom and work with children in order to make a difference. In fact, when Kim was talking, she lists all those things. CIS is one of our partners on the campuses. We have FACE, which is family and community engagement. We have social workers that are working with us, behavior specialists that are working with us. So we are a team and we have a team. So collaboration is important. Next slide. So I've shared with you the information. You should be able to tell by just how I'm looking, how excited I am. We have attended meeting last night. Bernie and I attended a family meeting. It was the first coffee at Jefferson High School. And we were able to attend that and tell about NAMI programs, as well as tell about NAMI on campus high school. So we're moving forward. We're getting the word out about the services of NAMI because those services are phenomenal and very helpful to people. And so again, I'm so excited to be a recently installed board member who's able to carry out a passion and continue to work with students in this particular arena by helping other children. Now, don't think it's just Jefferson and Lanier, because other schools have already reached out to us, but it's a pilot program. We must look at this program for 1 full year and see how we can make changes and things that we can implement so that the program can be carried out in the way that NAMI National would want it to be, and what is our vision and what is in our hearts to do for our students. So right now, if you have any questions, I would love to entertain them for you.
Yes, Donnie, we have a question from Mary Baird. Will these groups be meeting during the school day, as transportation may become a problem for students to join this if they're not?
We are right where we need to be. I knew that students do not come to school until after Labor Day. You can start school at any time you want, but after Labor Day is when you're going to have your population. So what has happened last night, it was identified that there's an advisory period at Jefferson. And that advisory period is at 8 in the morning or 8 something in the morning. We're going to be able to use that time because we're not taken away from academics. We must realize that academics are what schools are all about, not a nurturing, caring environment that takes care of mental health issues for children. So we're working with Lanier. That's one of the questions they are trying to figure out what's going on. We don't want to dictate to any school when. We want them to come up with what it is that's most convenient for them. And at Lanier and Jefferson, kids riding the bus and things like that, when I was assigned to Jefferson for 2 years as an assistant principal, that was never an issue. Those parents were on board and they would pick their children up. So in another report, I will be able to give an update, but we're in the beginning stages and asking the questions, who, what, when, where, how can this be done? I would like for something to happen on the lunch periods because I like working lunches and kids, the fellowship is my terminology. But we're unsure of these things, but we can't, of Lanier, but we can't say, yes, Jefferson, there's an advisory period for this club.
Okay, and also from Mary, her daughter was in a group called PAL, P-A-L, when she was in high school. That helped her a lot. Are you aware if PAL, which was a leadership program, is still in the schools now?
Well, what an interesting question. I am the first Master PAL teacher in the state of Texas, honored by our former governor, Perry. So I was the first one. My PALS was an exemplary program for the state. We trained other PAL students. We were recognized by President Clinton at the time as one of those point of light services. And so, yes, PALS, I don't believe is in SAISD, but I heard that it was in a another campus on northeast side, which I hope to visit them. But Peer Assistance in Leadership is an excellent program. That's where the leadership comes in. A lot of the leadership will be based on PALS leadership and capturing kids' part leadership curriculum. I hope I answered that question. I got excited to hear PALS. Any additional questions, please?
Yes, there's a question. What are high school students expressing about their mental wellness concerns at this point in the game?
It all depends on that caring, nurturing adult. Now, the one thing, this brought to mind something. The one problem I felt that we would have would be confidentiality. Because now we have this social media thing that blows up and one person can say something and 5 million people respond. So I don't want it to be where the kids are being trained and then they go out and tell others. So I've come up with a plan. I hope you like it. I will have a judge in robe come in and swear these kids into confidentiality as well as it being written. But the act of having to stand before a judge and talk to a judge and say, I will not tell anyone what's going on except whom I need to tell, it's powerful and impactful. Plus, I don't want their first experience to be with a judge to be a negative one, whether in juvenile like my students. So I want them to have that kind of thing, that this is important. And the judge would visit again and ask, were you confident? Did you abide by the confidentiality rule? And that kind of thing. So kids do talk openly. Again, they talk openly to each other, but they don't know what to do. They tell each other outlandish things. So that's why we're going to have these trained ambassadors to help and for them to seek the help that they might need.
Okay, thank you. There's also a comment from Patty Garza. Write that name down. This is incredible. My mind is exploding with ideas.
Thank you. Thanks, Eddie. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see the kids sitting in front of us. I cannot wait. But NAMI is on board and NAMI is there when there's a problem, and NAMI is changing. Normally, NAMI does not work other than the ending the silence, to my knowledge, with children under 18. This is a new start. And I'm excited to be part of this program, and my team is exemplary, and it's growing with people that we need. I'm a faith-based person, and I know that it is the will for this to be successful, and things are happening, and everybody says, yes, 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 yes. So I'm excited about that. Do you envision the program moving into charter and private schools eventually? Of course. We already have schools that are contacting us, but I can't do anything until I see how it works and what we need to do and the curriculum written based on the needs of the campus. So this is all new. This is just the first step.
There's a question regarding, will the students need parents' permission to join?
Students always need parent permissions to join. Always remember, and the schools are signing a permission slip that they are on board with us. So all of that paperwork has to be done. Help form needs to be filled out. If we take those kids on a trip or anything like that, we would need to have that information on hand. So there's a lot of required paperwork that the school requires normally that we're going to require also. It's all about safety. Our number one thing is safety. And we really don't know when we get ready to do things, we want to form those relationships, but we really don't know the kids because it's open to all students. So we're not going to have the cream of the crop students like a peer assistance and leadership class where they had to apply to my class and I can say, you can't be a parent. No, everyone, no matter what their handicap and condition, everyone is invited to join.
Thank you very much, Donnie.
Thank you. Thanks so much for
Wonderful information. Now we're going to hear from Josh Neville, who is a clinical assistant professor within the Department of Pharmacy Practice at the University of the Incarnate Word. And I believe it's pronounced the Beck School of Pharmacy. I hope I pronounced that right, Josh. He specializes in psychiatric and neurological care and currently serves as the clinical pharmacy specialist at Laurel Ridge Treatment Center in San Antonio. Josh attended the Purdue University College of Pharmacy and received his doctorate of pharmacy in 2019. He completed his first year of clinical pharmacy residency training at St. Louis University Hospital in St. Louis. From there to North Carolina to complete his specialty in psychiatric pharmacy at the University of North Carolina Medical Center. He joined the faculty of the University of Incarnate Word in 2021 this year, and his primary teaching responsibilities are in what is called the CNS Pharmacotherapeutic Model and APC 5 Skills Lab Series. And I'm sure Josh will explain that to us in a minute. Josh is a member of several professional organizations, most notably the College of Psychiatry and Neurological Pharmaceutics. And his research interests include anxiety, thought disorder with special emphasis on obsessive compulsive disorder and neurodevelopmental disorders. He's been a longtime member of NAMI throughout his college and professional career. He helped found NAMI on the campus of Purdue and helped establish the chapter there. He serves as a voting member of the NAMI West Central Indiana and organization and spoke many times at NAMI Indiana conferences. And he's especially interested in the ending the silence. Josh, we look forward to your comments.
Awesome, appreciate it. Thank you for the very long introduction, but as alluded to before, my name is Joshua Knebel. I'm a new faculty member over at the Fike School of Pharmacy. I teach primarily in the CNS or the central nervous system module over there. So I'm teaching our pharmacy students about the pharmacotherapy associated with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anxiety disorders, as well as some of the neurological conditions such as myasthenia gravis, and do some research with anxiety related, specifically obsessive compulsive disorders. So that's a little bit of my background. I really started off with NAMI way back in my college career at Purdue University, started NAMI on campus there, watched it start off as a small club with about 2 or 3 members and blossom to about like 30 members now. So it was really fruitful, got really involved with NAMI West Central Indiana and just moved to the San Antonio area now and looking to be a great ambassador and linking some of the college programming between like University Incarnate Word, UTSA, with just NAMI San Antonio, because there's a lot of parallels we can see there and a lot of programming that can help out a lot of students, especially because they're often a patient population that can't advocate for themselves. But as any professor would start off with, we're going to have some learning objectives. I'm a big stats guy. Numbers never lie. So I'm going to start off by just quantifying some of the mental health challenges we face on college campuses. Then I'm just going to describe some of the standard services offered to college students and faculty on campus themselves, and then propose how we could possibly link that between mental health services provided both with NAMI and just campuses provided on our campus services. Next slide, please. And just to quantify some of the mental health epidemic that we've been seeing on college campuses, we know that greater than 20% of college students suffer from a mental health disorder. This really parallels the 1 in 5 statistic we see out in the common community. So that really just emphasizes the fact that this is occurring both in a college age population as well. Just moving on to the second box, 73% of students experience some sort of mental health crisis during college. So expanding upon that 1 in 5, we know that at least 3 out of 4 students will experience some mental health crisis that would require intervention while they're in school, thus showing the need for proper mental health services on campus. With more than 80% of college students feeling overwhelmed or having about 45% feeling thoughts of helplessness and worthlessness. And this really is expedited by the pandemic as well. And then moving down to the bottom left box, unique to this patient population, sexual assault is really prevalent too as well, with greater than 20% of female students reporting sexual assault or feeling threatened while on a college campus. So this is another area unique to this patient population that we need to consider ourselves with as well. But with that too, the demand for counseling services has grown by at least 5 times faster than average student enrollment. So we know that when we're looking at a supply and demand issue here, with counseling services really not being able to keep up with this growing mental health pandemic, because we know students really don't use as much services as they can. But with that, our new generation of students are using mental health services a little bit more than their predecessors, but really that supply isn't able to meet that demand at this point. And with that, only 25% of students with a mental health problem actually seek help. So we know that 1 in 5 students will have a mental health disorder, but really only 25% of those students really try to seek out some form of healthcare. And we know that just in general, that can go a long way in hopefully improving their quality of life and their overall performance in the classroom at school as well. Next slide, please. And with that too, whenever we talk about the college population specifically, there really are a ton of underlying factors, but I think a lot of the factors that stem from this really are related to the fact that there's high expectations, social media involvement, and financial pressures associated with this. This is a new generation with new pressures that are associated with it, because now we know anybody can post things to social media to where they're looking very proud and happy at their college experience. But really what we don't see is that person or student might be crying in their dorm room at night, and all we get is this front of their social media experience. And with that too, these students are moving away from home more often than not recently. And with that comes a lot of high expectations, financial impact that these students are experiencing as they're being taken away from their normal support systems that they experienced in high school and are now thrown into a new environment that is very rigorous academically. And with that, if you throw the whole pandemic influence as well, that just throws an extra cook in the kitchen whenever we talk about mental health in college campuses, because we know that 60% of students say the pandemic has made it more difficult to access mental health care. And we know that students as well were underutilizing mental health care to begin with. And with that, this is just creating a bigger influence on their ability to seek out mental health care. And I have a few just bar graphs to help extrapolate this. And with that too, these come from actually NAMI data. NAMI produced a really big survey to college campuses back in 2012. And that's what this graph here in the bottom left shows, where it shows, have you accessed mental health services and supports on campus? And as you can see, 40% say that they didn't actually use the mental health services on campus. But despite that, when they ask them, how would you rate those services? They say that they're good or excellent. So this really shows that often or not, the services provided are sufficient, but students aren't actually utilizing them. And then throwing this as well into the terms of the pandemic with this bottom right-hand graph, we can throw and classify this. This comes from the National Coalition of Health, and they surveyed students based on the COVID-19 pandemic effect on their mental health care. And as you can see, about 36.8 or 37% say it's somewhat more difficult to have access to mental health care. And we know these students aren't using it as much as they could. And this just throws another barrier and quantifies it further, with even 25% saying it's much more difficult. Next slide, please. And just to further allude to this, as I talked about, financial, housing, and other impacts are really big here as well. This upper bar graph in the left-hand corner, how has your financial situation been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? As you can see, about 40% say it's somewhat more successful, and 27% say it's been a lot more successful. Specifically, when we talk about financial incentives in this patient population, we know college students are facing a lot of student loans, impact, and need to work while they're out in the community. A lot of them are working out in the service industry. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, they're not able to go out and work those jobs out in the service industry, as a lot of just facilities and services are shut down specifically. And with that too, we know that the living situation can be really impactful here as well, because students typically stay in dorm rooms, and with the COVID-19 pandemic, dorm rooms are only allowing like one student. Students are having to go off-campus housing. As you can see, 36% of students in this upper right-hand corner graph said that their living situation was impacted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And when you think about it, just a place to live and place to stay is really just an essential part of the college experience. And just throwing an extra caveat and not being able to find a dorm room or having to live off campus because you had to quarantine or something like that can really throw an impact and just a wrench into your mental health care as well. And with that, this final bar graph in the bottom as well, it just shows over the past 2 weeks how much you've been concerned with the following. And awesome. Basically, just looking at the bottom left, your personal sense of safety and security, 54% say it's somewhat been impacted, and then 58% say that they're still concerned about contracting the coronavirus. So just another looming factor over the heads of college students that they don't really need at this point. Next slide, please. Now that we talked about and quantified the problem that we're seeing on college campuses, what really are we looking at here specifically? Looking here at the left, as you can see, there's a litany of different mental health challenges we face. Specific to this patient population, anxiety is going to be the biggest problem that we're going to see, as well as suicidal ideation, addiction. As we know, sometimes college students are prone to using Adderall and other illicit substances while on college campuses. And relationship problems is a really big problem we see on college campuses as well. And right here on the right-hand side, as you can see, there's another litany of different programming that we offer. A lot of them include suicide prevention plans, 24 hours crisis hotlines, mental health training for faculty, staff, and students. So as you can see, there's a lot of programming out there for college students, but they're really at this point not accessing and utilizing it as they could. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, and we'll talk about those a little bit more. I believe I have a figure that'll come up if you hit next slide for me. And with this, they actually asked students, oh, could you go back for me, please? Beautiful, thanks. And then they asked what mental health crisis services and supports are critical on campus. So they asked students, what services are you going to utilize the most if we offer them? As you can see, 70% of the 24-hour crisis hotline was really vital to them, as they would have somebody to talk to in a dire situation. And with that too, off-campus and on-campus referrals were very important as well, as we know that just getting these patients into clinical healthcare can be really big as well. And as you can see, on-call psychiatrists, intake and evaluation off-campus, and even hospitalization are seen as valuable in the eyes of students. Next slide, please. And finally, just to quantify this, student involvement in mental health offerings is really the impact here as well. Because we know that 45% of young adults who stopped attending college because of mental health related reasons didn't actually receive accommodations. So 50% of students that quit going to class didn't actually try to access the mental health service that they were looking for. And really the number one reason for this is the concern for stigma, as alluded to in the previous presentations by my peers. Because there really is this stigma as you're thrown into a college campus where you need to perform and excel. And there's a lot of pressures. We talked about networking, trying to make sure you build that network, show that you're valuable, get that internship. there's a big stigma, and it's often seen as a sign of weakness to seek mental health care. And as alluded to this NAMI data here as well, what are the barriers that exist in mental health services? As you can see, stigma is actually greater than a busy schedule. So students are more inclined not to go seek mental health services, as seeing this as a sign of weakness or just a stigma associated with it, greater than the fact that they have a busy schedule, with that being the second alluded impact. And with that too, appointment wait times is really big as well. We know with the surrounding community, just access to healthcare is really big today. We know that there's a really big supply and demand issue, as I alluded to before. We just need more therapists, more hours as well. With 40% or 39% saying that there's a more than 5-day wait to just get appointments, both on college campuses out and in the community. And if you think of somebody that's struggling with suicidal ideation or something along those lines, having to wait 5 or more days is really kind of concerning at this point. So really combating that stigma is going to be something that we need to combat with our programming. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the avenues of advancement that I kind of propose as well to try to combat some of these issues. Because as I've alluded to before, there really is a stigma associated with mental health care. College students aren't using it as well. It's really due to the environment they're in. But really we need to strike and work for creating a stigma-free culture. We know that's really one of NAMI's main emphasis and just part of their core values. Something that at Purdue, I had a t-shirt that said stigma-free, just kind of raising that on college campuses. Can go a long ways, and increasing access to mental health services is really big as well. Supply and demand, as I alluded to before. And then this third bullet, they show financial commitment to public health need. We really need to have a buy-in from administration. When I was at Purdue, Purdue is really kind of more conservative in terms of how they talked about mental health. So once I was able to start NAMI on campus and we had a symposium that had over 300 people come, just starting that conversation really kind of got administration to start thinking that maybe we need to put more money into the public or the mental health services on campus. And we were able to get a few grants rolling, so that way we were able to expand services, because really the number of counselors at Purdue wasn't sufficient to the demand that was being required on the college campuses. And with that too, diversifying services offered is really great as well. Program design and creativity. I'm really excited for the high school programming that we alluded to as well. But there's a really big space too for NAMI on campus, and diversifying to where maybe we can link those together, getting the high school and college age populations together, because we know high school students can sometimes look up to college students, and it's just a lived experience type of thing. Community partnerships really going to be as well, as I alluded to, NAMI San Antonio, local health clinics. I serve out in the community at Laurel Ridge Treatment Center, and with that too, I see a wide variety of different patients. I have my own clinical experience. And we can just kind of partner that as well. And then interprofessional development to round it all out. Really, whenever we look at the College of Psychology, Nursing, Pharmacy, we have a lot of interdisciplinary areas that all bring something to the table. Like psychology can bring that counseling component. Nursing and pharmacy can bring that pharmacotherapy component. And we can really serve the community out, gives our students a little bit more exposure out in the community, and just shows a good way to partner. Next slide, please. And just connecting this back to the UIW, or University Incarnate Word, and NAMI San Antonio as just a framework for this. Just looking at University of Incarnate Word, service is a core value. It's a faith-based organization. One of our big things is going out in the community and making sure we're having an impact. And we know mental health is a public health epidemic that we're facing as well. UIW has their own behavioral health services, their own programming, community outreach, faith-based organization, Knights of Columbus. Those are really big out in the community providing services. And if you combine that with NAMI San Antonio, who really has the ends to like the high school population, using in our own voice, ending the silence, to where you can hit the high school population, having some of our college students share what they went through to their high school peers, NAMI crisis counselor, just putting some of the students at University Incarnate Word and having them give them access to NAMI San Antonio, but also reciprocating the other way, to where the students, like I know my pharmacy students are really incentivized to go out in the community and do service. That way it helps their CB, get extra credit, things like that. So you can really partner it to where both organizations have something to take away from it as well. So that's really where I think there could be a really good link. UTSA is also in town. A lot of other college campuses are expanding NAMI on campus, but that's really just my overall highlights of the current state of mental health, especially during the pandemic, and just the programming parallels that we could link these two together. So I believe my next slide is just questions, comments, concerns. So I'm willing to take anything at this point.
We have one question from Karen Ball. Is cost a factor for not seeking mental health care?
Yeah, cost is always a really big impactor. I'd say whenever we look at the college age students specifically, whenever you look at campus programming, a lot of times the counseling service or the counseling services on campus will usually provide about 5 or 6 counseling sessions a semester before they start charging you. So really with that 5 or 6 counseling appointments, you can usually go about once a month or along those lines. And we know sometimes we need to go a little bit more frequently than that. So after that, it really does kind of become a pay to play type of thing sometimes, to where cost can be a limiting factor. And if you don't have that financial incentive or financial background, it can be a really big barrier to care, especially whenever I just work out in the community, just access to medications, access to mental health services. We know it's not cheap, and that can be a really big barrier out in the community as well. But I'd say on college campuses, it's a little bit less prevalent because the university often provides a lot of programming. Like you might be able to go to some peer support groups, things like that. But really you only get a couple counseling services a semester before you have to start to pay.
Please put any questions you might have in the chat box.
Has there been an effort in the San Antonio area, to your knowledge, to coordinate with the other universities and colleges to establish some sort of overall master plan for meeting this very important need? It is absolutely true. People going to college seem to be under a great deal more stress for a while. They're not quite prepared for it. Is there any work across the universities?
Yeah, I'd say I'm new to the area, been a Texan for only about a month and a half now. So really a big thing for me now is just been kind of try to rally the troops. So I've sent out a bunch of emails to try to like establish the conversation and talks between like UTSA, other colleges of pharmacy. Like I'm involved with CPNP, or the College of Psychiatric and Neurologic Pharmacists, and like University of Texas, Texas Tech, all of these have different psychiatric based organizations. So I've just been trying to kind of create some open dialogue between a lot of the higher ups at these other universities, but I've really only been here so far. So it's kind of laying the framework at this point, but really collaboration, there is a lot more powerful impact there. So hopefully it's an avenue to try to expand as well.
Are there any other questions? Well, with that, then I would very much like to thank Josh and Donnie and Kim for some very excellent presentations today. And I'm sure that if you have any further questions, you'll be able to let them know, or certainly let us know, and we'll be happy to try to get you connected up.
So save the date. Teams are forming now for the NAMI Walks Your Way on October 9th, 2021.
Please take advantage of that. That's very important to us all.
And Vernon? And Vernon Lister's going to tell us about NAMI Family Support Group.
Yes, we have a family support group that meets at, that will be meeting at the Wellness Center at Endeavors for veteran families. We also have an in-person family support group at Alamo Heights United Methodist Church. So look on our website to see where these support groups are. Next slide. Whoops, I don't see it. Anyhow, we have several support groups, NAMI Connection support group. We have one for the LGBTQ population. We have one for over 40. We have one for general mental health. So please look on our website to see all the different support groups. We also wanted to begin one for college students, and we're with COVID, it didn't get off to a good start, but we will be working on that. Is so needed, that support. So I'm so happy, Dr. Kimball, that you're on board with us and really looking forward to working with you. Next slide for Janie.
Volunteers are critical for the success of NAMI San Antonio. So if you're ready to get started and be a volunteer, go to the website at the top under the drop down, get involved, click on volunteer and fill out the information and someone will contact you. Next. And please join us next October 12th at the general meeting. The topic will be suicide awareness and prevention. Next. And thank you for joining us today at our NAMI general meeting. And next. We want to appreciate the general meeting planning subcommittee, committee staff advisors, Lori Packard. The members are Verna Lister, Katie Martin, Donald Sheldon, Janie Swatzel, and Sergio Salinas. Thank you. Next, I think that's it. Thank you for joining. See you next month.